What's up, everybody? We have a crazy session for you here today. We're playing some 5-10, sometimes with the $20 straddle on. And first hand of the night, oh baby, we got a big blind special. We wake up with it, Pocket Kings, the Cowboys.
Dude, did you see them yesterday?
And unfortunately, it's going to fold all the way around to my opponent in a small blind. Would have loved to see some opens there, of course, having the second best starting hand in poker. But at least we're going to have some blind versus blind action. And my opponent decides to just put in a limp. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Come on now. Raise it up so I can 3-bet. Let's get the money in. But hey, I guess I have to do the raising myself. So I do put in that ISO and I bump it up to $30. And my opponent's going to be putting in a call. So we're going to go heads up to a flop of Jack 7-9 all hearts. Not the best flop with Pocket Kings. Would have been a little bit better if we had the King of Hearts, but we don't. So I do have to be a little bit careful here. My opponent's going to be putting in the check, and I'm still going to be putting in a C-bet. I go about half the pot. I make it $30 to go, and my opponent's going to be putting in the call. We go to the turn, and it comes the 5 of diamonds. Pretty good turn here. Love to see that rather than the 5 of hearts. At least if my opponent is floating that single heart draw, they have not made their hand yet, and I didn't face any aggression on the flop. My opponent puts in a check again, and not going to be checking back here, grabbing a bunch of chips again. We're going to be putting out a bet. I make it $90 to go. Checking back here would be horrible since it would give my opponent a free chance to realize their equity. Don't want to do that here, especially with a hand as strong as Pocket Kings and we don't have a heart. And my opponent decides the bet is too big. They lay down their cards, and we do take down the first pot to start off the session. And next hand, we're going to get dealt King 9 suited on the button. No straddle on once again. And under the gun is going to be opening for $30. It's going to fold around to me on the button, and I'm going to be putting in a call. Small blind folds, and big blind puts in a call. So we're going to be going 3 ways to a flop of 9, 7, 5, 2 hearts. So pretty good board here. All low cards. It's not going to hit under the gun's range that much. And I do have top pair, top kicker, but no spades on the board. So we don't have that backdoor flush draw potential. Big blind's going to be putting in the check. Under the gun's going to be putting in the check. And having top pair, second best kicker, we got to start building this pot. We got to put the money in. We can't let them see a turn for free. So I do grab my chips, and I bet roughly 66% of the pot. I make it $60 to go. Big blind puts in the call, and under the gun folds. So we're just going to be going heads up to the turn, and it comes the King of Clubs. Now that is a beautiful, sexy turn. We just turned top 2 pair. If my opponent did have any random 2 pair that they're just calling and not check raising on a flop, I now have them completely dominated. And there is something really interesting about this turn. It is the King of Clubs. So there are now 2 flush draws on the board, and I do have spades in my hand. My opponent is capable of having 2 flush draws right now. So really hope that river can come to a blank if we get to it. My opponent puts in the check, and we're going to be turning up the aggression here on the turn. We did size up decently on the flop, but we are going to size up crazy on the turn. We're going for it. I grab my chips and I'm going for the massive overbet. Yes, you know we love overbetting. I make it $300 to go. And my opponent does think about it for a little bit, but they're not going anywhere yet. They do put in a call, and we go to the river, and it comes the 6 of clubs. This is one of the worst rivers that I can see. The 6 of clubs brings in that backdoor flush draw, and it also brings in the 4 card straight. Really just hoping my opponent finds a check here on the river, and they just don't start donk leading, and they do take a couple of seconds. They do decide to check, and I'm like, thank you, Jesus, because I'm not putting more money in this pot. Gotta just take this to showdown. I do check back. My opponent turns over King 3 suited. So they did have the front end flush draw, and they turned the pair. Luckily, there was no heart on the river. Love to see it. I believe I made as much money as I could have in this pot. Great way to start off this session. And for the next hand, we're going to get dealt Ace 9 suited in low jack position. It's going to fold to me, and I'm going to be opening for $30. Hijack's going to be putting in a call. Cutoff's going to be putting in a call. And surprisingly, even though my opponents behind have such good odds, they all decide to fold. But hey, not going to complain here. And I guess we're just going to be going 3 ways to a flop of 6 Jack 10, 2 clubs. Looking pretty good here. We do flop the nut flush draw. Do have some backdoor equity as well with my ace and 9 for straight possibilities. So yeah, no complaints once again. It is a multi-way pot, and all I have is a draw, so I'm going to chill this time. I'm just going to be putting in the check and not c-betting. My opponent in hijack decides to put out a bet of $30. Cutoff puts in a call. And I think about it like, don't like the fact that Cutoff is trying to sneak their way and come along here. I want to put some pressure on them. I'm going to go for it. I'm going for that check Rizzle. I grab my chips and I bump it up all the way to $130. And I really do like the number 130. Has the number 13 in front of it. That's my favorite number, by the way. But anyway, yeah, we're putting in that check Rizzle. And Hijack thinks about it for a couple of seconds. They put in a call. And then Cutoff is going to come along with the call as well. This is not what I wanted. I would have loved to thin out the field here. Or maybe even just get 2 folds. I don't have a made hand yet. Let's hope we can hit up the club on the turn. So we're going to go to it 3 ways still, and it's going to come the 8 of hearts. Not the turn I wanted to see, but it is a pretty good one. I now have turned an open-ended straight draw with the nut flush draw, so I have a shit ton of equity at this point. And I decide I'm still going to be following my aggressive line here. So I'm grabbing my chips, and I put out a bet of $340, and looking back at it in game, I felt this was the right thing to do. But now I really don't like my line here. I just check raised massive on this flop. Both of my opponents called, and I'm still barreling here on the turn. The 8 of hearts is a pretty dangerous card. It does complete 2 straight draws, such as Queen 9 and 9-7. So I should have treaded a bit more cautiously here. Would have loved to see myself check instead, because bloating this pot up without having a made hand out of position isn't the greatest thing to do. But yep, oh well, we learn from our mistakes, right? Just got to make sure we can recognize them. But yeah, I did decide to put out the bet, and Hijack thinks about it for a couple of seconds, and he announced it's going to be all in for $1,280. Cutoff does fold, and I'm just sitting there like, I mean, it's just $900 more. I decided to take this line. I have an open-ended nut flush draw, and odds are if I hit the straight, I might even be good. So yeah, unfortunately can't go anywhere. I'm going to be putting in a call, and me and my opponent talk it up. My opponent and I discuss how many times we wanted to run it. We end up deciding on 2 times. So that's what we're going to do. Let's hope we can find a club or hit that straight. Let's go straight to the run out. And for the first run out, it does come a 3 of diamonds. That's a brick city right there. But on the second run out, it does come to 5 of clubs. So I know I have the nuts there. I do turn over my cards and just announce that the deal is going to be a chop. My opponent already let me know that they did have Queen 9 suited. So that's why I really don't like that double barrel there after the check Rizzle on the flop. You're just going to run into a lot of strong hands that have you dominated against your nut flush drawer. And then you're going to have to hit your hand on the river in order to beat them. But yeah, I'm happy with the overall result. At least we do get the choppers. And we're going to wake up with everybody's favorite drawing hand in poker. The best drawing hand at that. Ace King suited in early position. Under the gun is going to be putting in a limp, and we're not having this limp party here. No way. I decided to grab my chips. I'm going to be bumping it up. I ISO to $50. It folds all the way around to button, and they put in a call. Small blind folds, and then big blind decides to put in that 3-bet squeeze all the way up to $250. And the under the gun limp does fold, and I'm thinking here, 250, that is a massive 3-bet squeeze if you think about the sizing. I'm like, what kind of hand do they have here that they're going this big? I mean, do they not want action? Do they want action? Because this is 25 big blinds and we only made it 5 big blinds. I know we had an extra call on the button, but damn, this is pretty big. So with their sizing, I decide I don't really just want to call here. If I do just call, button has the chance to come along as well. Do I really want to take Ace King suited 3 ways? No. And I'm going to be sandwiched in, not having position. Well, I have position on big blind, but I won't have position on button, of course, right? So yeah, I decide to go the aggressive route. You know, we love that route, of course. I grab my chips and I decide to put in that 4-bet in position. I bump it all the way up to $550. Button is going to fold. And big blind is going to be putting in the call. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried here. Just hoping I can spike that ace or king. So we're going to go heads up to a flop of 8-10-5 rainbow. My opponent does check. And not the best flop here for ace king. but I did 4-bet my opponent in position. They do have to be a bit worried here. That's a strong 4-bet and their sizing was massive. So I'm still going to be putting in a C-bet here. I decide to go a very big size, grab my chips, and I bet $550, which is close to half the pot. And my opponent does go into the tank a little bit. They tank, and then they finally announced they're going to be all in. And this is not what I expected to happen after they tanked. I believe they were going to fold. That's what I would have loved to see. But yeah, now I'm here with them going all in. Just $600 more than my bet. And it was already $1,100-$1,200 in the middle before I even put in the extra money. I know I'm behind here, but at least there's one club on the board. Have some backdoor potential. We can go runner straight, runner flush, or maybe just hit an ace or a king and we'll be good. So with all those factors, I decide to put in a call, and I do ask them, and we discussed how many times we're going to run it. We agree on 2 times, and that's what it's going to be. So let's go straight to the run out. And these runouts are really going to toy with me in this one. The turn comes the 9 of clubs, and then the river comes the 2 of hearts. In the second run out, the turn comes the 2 of clubs, and then it comes the 9 of hearts. Are you kidding me? It's the same card, but backwards with the suits. Why couldn't it just be 2 clubs coming out on one of the boards so I know that I win? And my opponent does turn over pocket queens. So all we had to do was hit an ace or a king or hit 2 clubs, and we would have at least scooped 1 pot. But hey, can't do anything here. Very surprising to lose to my favorite hand, the ladies. But with me playing that line, there's really nothing I can do. I can't fold the flop after betting that big and my opponent not having much behind. But yeah, we're just going to have to take this L and move on to the next hand. And next hand, I'm going to get dealt pocket 7s. Hopefully, at some point on the board, we can find a 7 from heaven. And I'm going to be opening under the gun for $30. It does fold all the way around to my opponent on button. They're going to be putting in a call. Small blind does fold, and big blind is going to be putting in a call. So we're going to go 3 ways to a flop of Jack 6-3, 2 diamonds, no diamond in my hand. So looking pretty rough here, but we do have second best pair on the board. Big blind puts in the check. I know there is an overcard on the board, but still going to be putting in a C-bet here this time. Not going to play the passive route. Grab my chips, and I put out a bet of $30. Button puts in a call, and big blind is going to fold. Would have loved for button to fold and big blind to call, right? So that we can have position on them and control all the action. But hey, that's not the case this time. So we're going to be going heads up to the turn, and it comes the 2 of clubs. A relative blank here on the board, of course. At least it's not the 2 of diamonds. So hey, not complaining. And yeah, there is 5-4 suited, but I mean, people don't go too crazy with 5-4 suited from what I've seen. But I am going to slow down a little bit. I do decide to put in a check, and my opponent does grab chips. They're going to be putting in a bet. They make it $60 to go. And I know I do just have second best pair, but I'm not going to be going anywhere yet. We're going to see if my opponent does have the balls to put more chips in on the river. I put in a call, and we go to it, and it comes the ace of hearts. Looks at first to be a scary river, but I mean, the ace of hearts isn't that crazy. I mean, I guess now they can have ace jack and they're just going to bet the river, right? So yeah, really happy that I just didn't see a diamond, to be honest. So I put in a check, and my opponent immediately checks back. That's music to my ears. I turn over my pocket 7s, and they muck their cards. And see, that's why sometimes you have to be a little bit sticky on turns, even though you are out of position. Yeah, your opponent can put you in some tough spots, but hey, sometimes they just have to give up. And in this scenario, my opponent did, and we take down the pot. And for this hand, we're going to have 9-6 suited or 6-9 suited in cutoff position. And it's going to fold to me in cutoff. I'm going to be opening for $30. Everybody's going to fold, but big blind is going to be putting in the call. So we're going to be going heads up to a flop of 7-10 to 2 spades. Looking pretty good here. We have a 9 high flush draw, and we can even hit an 8-ball corner pocket for a straight. And yeah, my opponent could have jack 9, but come on now. If they do, take my money. Big blind's going to be put in the check. I'm going to be putting in a C-bet here. Grab my chips. I make it $20 to go. And they're not going anywhere yet. They're going to be putting in a call. We go to the turn, and it comes the 4 of hearts. So not the turn I wanted to see here. Would have loved if I just saw a spade or hit my straight. But hey, we got to deal with it. And my opponent's going to be put in the check. Now I decide to turn up the aggression here. I'm going for it. Yes, y'all know me. We are putting in That sexy overbet here. I grab my chips and I make it $130 to go. That famous 130 overbet. My opponent does think about it for a little bit longer this time, and they still decide to put in a call. And we go to the river and it comes the 5 of diamonds. Not what I wanted to see. I don't have a made hand now. This sucks. I'm just here with 9 high. My opponent checks and I do go into the tank for about 20-30 seconds. I was deciding, should I put in a bluff here? And I think about it, and yeah, this time I decide to not be aggressive. Sometimes you have to know when to give up, ladies and gentlemen. And this is one of those times. I chill, I let it go. I know I'm going to lose when I check back. I have 9 high. It's okay. I do check back, and my opponent turns over King 4 suited. The same suit that's in my hand. So they turned the pair and already had a flush draw from the flop. So I was drawing very thin here. Would have had to hit a 6 or a 9 to win or hit my straight. If a flush came, I wouldn't have gotten stacked, but I would have lost a decent amount of money. So hey, it's cool. Just gonna move on to the next hand. And next hand for the night, we're gonna have Jack 6 suited in hijack. It's gonna fold to me and I'm gonna be opening for $30. Cutoff's gonna be put in the call. And it folds all the way around to big blind. They're going to be coming along with the call as well. So we're going to be going 3 ways. Seems to be the theme of this video with the 3 ways, right? But yeah, to a flop of 4 ace 7 rainbow. And not the greatest flop ever, but we do have some backdoor potential. We can go runner for a straight, runner for a flush. So yeah, looking pretty good. We'd love to see a 5 on the turn so we can be open-ended. But yeah, let's see what happens. Big blind's going to be put in the check. And I know I don't have a hand yet, but I can have a hand later. So I'm going to be putting in a C-bet. I make it $30 to go. My opponent in cutoff folds, but big blind's going to be putting in a call. This is perfect. Happy to thin out the field here. And just happy to be in position on big blind. I get to control all the action now. In position is the best position to be while you're playing poker. So we're going to go heads up to a turn and it comes the 3 of spades. That's a pretty good turn. I now do have a gutter to the nut straight, which should be the nut straight, or we can hit a spade on a river for a jack high flush. My opponent puts in a check, and yeah, what am I going to do here? Am I going to check back, see what the river is? Am I going to bet small, medium, or big? And what would you do in this spot? Let me know in the comments below before you actually see what I do. I'm going to say what I did in 3, 2, 1. And yeah, we're going for it. Putting in that overbet. Yes, an overbet. I am making it $210 to go. And my opponent does think about it for a little bit, but they do lay down their cards. And we take it down with jack high. No need to see if we hit our hand on the river or not. And this hand, we're going to have queen jack offsuit. Got a lady in my hand. I love it. In small blind. And under the gun is going to be putting in a limp. Somebody in middle position puts in a limp. Button puts in a limp. We pretty much have a limp party going on. I'm like, well, queen jack, I can make some really good hands. I put in a limp as well. And big blind just checks. Beautiful. We have a limp party here. It's not a family pot, but I guess it's a family limp party. Or maybe a family limp party pot. But that's just too many words, right? So we'll call it a family limp party. That's what it is. So we're going to be going 5 ways. Yes, 5 ways to a flop of jack 10-4. Rainbow. So decent flop here. I have top here, 3rd best kicker, but yeah, I could be losing to everything right now. So I have to be a little bit careful. I do put in a check. Big blind checks, and a lot of people just check to my left. Button, however, does not check, and he put out a bet of $30. I put in a call, and everybody else folds. So it looks like it's just going to be the 2 of us, and we're going to go heads up to the turn, and it comes a 7 of hearts. Not the scariest of turns. We have a rainbow board on it now, and that's pretty good. When you can have a rainbow board on a turn in poker, you don't have to worry about any flush draws at all. I put in a check. Opponent is still grabbing some chips here, and they put out a bet of $130. I know it's a limp pot, and ranges are extremely wide here, but not going to go anywhere yet. I put in a call, and we go to the river, and it comes the jack of hearts. We jack them. This is a pretty good river. I now have trips and the 3rd best kicker possible. I check and my opponent decides to put out a pretty healthy wager here. They make it $350 to go. And yeah, I go into the tank here a little bit. I decide, do I just want to call here or do I want to put in that check on Jemima? And I do go into the tank for a bit. I'm fully aware that my opponent could have 9-8, but they can just have a weaker jack that is going to call here. So can't be scared of not having the nuts here. And I know maybe they have pocket 4s sometimes. Don't really put my opponent on pocket 10s here. Believe they would have ISO'd that pre based on me playing with them at the table for a bit. So yeah, with all these factors, I decide, yes, I'm going to go for it. We're doing it. I'm putting in that check Rizzo Aunt Jemima on the river for all of it. And they snap call. That is not what you want to see when you check Aunt Jemima, ladies and gentlemen. Not at all. As soon as they snap call, I'm like, fuck, I'm probably going to see a boat. And I do let them know I have a jack, and they show me jack 4 offsuit, the famous jack 4 offsuit, limps it in, and they just had 2 pair from the flop. The jack just made me lose a lot more chips on the river. It really sucks here, but hey, I do like my play. They're not always going to have a boat here, but yeah, just a really tough run out. And I said it on the last video, don't go broke in a limp pot. And yeah, I guess I went broke. Well, not broke, but yeah, I lost a shit ton of money in a damn limped pot. Have you ever gotten into a situation like this in a limp pot where things didn't go your way, or maybe they did go your way? Let me know in the comments below. Don't be afraid. And next hand for tonight, we're going to have 10-9 suited in middle position. Under the gun is going to be opening for $30. And I'm going to be putting in that 3-bet here. I bump it up all the way to $100. It folds around to my opponent in big blind, and they're going to be putting in the cold call. That's not what I want to see, and I don't know why they're doing that. But yeah, they put it in the cold call, and my opponent and under the gun having such good odds. They say F it. They flick it in as well. So in this 3-bet pot, we're going to be going to the flop 3 ways, and it's going to come 8-8-9, 2 clubs. Pretty decent flop here. I do have top pair, weak kicker, but I do have some backdoor equity with the heart draw. My opponents could have a flush draw already, and maybe I can just c-bet and get their overcards to fold. That would be really nice. And at least if I hit a 9, I would have the nut boat. So yeah, decent flop, decent flop. Big blind is going to be checking. Under the gun is going to be checking. I'm still going to be c-betting here. I make it $100 to go. Big blind puts in the call, and under the gun puts in the call. That's not what I want to see here. Not looking pretty good here. We go to the turn, 3-way still, and it comes a nice rubber ducky, 2 of hearts. That's what I want to see. Do have top here still, but now I have a flush draw to go with it. Love to see it. Big blind's going to be put in the check. Under the gun checks, and not going to bet here again. I am slightly worried about some random overpairs here, so I decide to check back. And we go to the river, and it comes the jack of clubs. Not the time I wanted to jack my opponents here, but luckily big blind does check and under the gun checks. And yeah, I'm not putting more money in this pot. I have a pair. It's a weak one. I decide to check back, and then big blind turns over pocket queens the ladies. Why do they oh my god, how do they have, wow, I guess I lost the minimum kind of if they're gonna have the ladies here. This is kind of crazy, but hey, under the gun mucked, and I muck as well. Just really surprising to see my favorite hand played this way. Oh man, poor ladies. Don't worry, I'll make sure if I get dealt you that I'll treat you right. All right. And for this hand, we're gonna have ace-10 offsuit on the button. Under the gun is gonna be put in a limp. It does folds around to me, and I'm gonna be putting in that ISO. You know me, I don't like limping. I bump it up all the way to $50. Goes back around to my opponent and under the gun, and they put in the call. So we're going to be going heads up to a flop of queen king 2, 2 clubs. Decent flop. I am drawing to the nuts if we can just jack them. So not complaining here at all. My opponent puts in the check. I decide to c-bet still, grab my chips, make it 50%. I bet $50. My opponent puts in a call. We go to the turn, and it comes the 6 of hearts. Do have the ace of hearts in my hand, kind of an important card, but my opponent still does check, of course, and I decide to put it in that double barrel. Not going to slow down here, trying to put some pressure on, and I make it $140 to go. And they're still not going to go anywhere yet. They're going to be putting in the call. So we're going to go to the river, and it comes a rubber ducky, 2 of hearts again, just like the last hand. And yeah, that does bring in that backdoor flush, and my opponent immediately, yes, immediately grabs their chips, and they just donk and lead for $400. I'm like, what the hell is this? They just lead in, And keep in mind, this is the same person who just flatted pocket queens in big blind. And at this point, there's really nothing I can do. Am I going to call ace high here? No. Am I going to try to raise this donk lead on river? I could, but no, I'm not going to do that. They're going to have the best hand. I'm all right. I do shake my head and I mark my cards. My next hand for the night, we're going to have a decent one dealt to us in the big blind. We have ace jack offsuit. Just probably one of the hardest ace X's to play, right? Everybody just doesn't like a jack. I don't know why, but hey, we're playing it. And it's going to fold to cutoff. They're going to be putting in a limp. Button folds. And small blind decides to put in that ISO to $40. I'm going to be putting in a 3-bet here. I have position on them in the blinds. And hopefully cutoff isn't just limping aces. So yeah, I'm going to be bumping it up with that sexy 3-bet. I make it $120 to go. And cutoff does fold, but small blind's going to be putting in a call. No problem here. And we're going to be going heads up to a flop of ace, 9, 10, 2 clubs. Don't have any clubs in my hand, so my opponent can't have a lot of flush draws. At least we do have top pair. Third best kicker. I mean, my opponent shouldn't have ace king. They can have ace queen though. But they can also just have a weaker ace X that we can just start building a pot with, and they have to keep calling. So they do put in a check, and I'm going to put on a C-bet here. Decide to size up a bit this time. I make it $170 to go. And my opponent, he's going to be putting in a call. So we go to the turn, and it comes the 8 of spades. That's a kind of scary turn there, but at least I do have the jack of spades in my hand. I am now open-ended to a straight. Would love to hit that on the river. Small blind puts in the check. And I'm going to chill here a bit. Let's see what the river is. I decide to check back. And we go to it, and it comes the 6 of diamonds. So I did want a low card, but I wanted the 7 of diamonds. That would have been a lot better. And in my corner of my eye, see my opponent grab their chips, and they're going to be putting on a bet of $100. I mean, this is just such a small bet and relative to what's in the pot. I'm not going to fold an ace here. Don't really believe they have a 7. I mean, they can, but still. Like, I'm just not believing this, and I have top here, decent kicker. So yeah, I decide to flick in a call, and my opponent does turn over ace queen, losing again to opponent with a lady in their hand. Kind of upsetting, but hey, feel like I almost lost the minimum there with having top here and a jack kicker. So yeah, you can see why people really do not like ace jack, right? And next hand for the night, we're going to have pocket tens. Really good start in hand here. Dealt to us on button, so we're going to have position as well. And it does fold to hijack. They're going to be opening for $30. Cutoff's going to be putting in the call. And yeah, we're not having this. Not just going to flat. I'm going to be putting in that 3-bet squeeze. I bump it up all the way to $120. Small blind's going to fold, and big blind's going to be putting in the call. That is crazy to be putting in the call here. But yeah, they're coming along. And because of that, hijack, I guess, decides to put in a call. And cutoff does as well. So yeah, kind of scary. But we're going to be going 4 ways to a flop of 6, 8, 5. 2 clubs. Don't have the 10 of clubs in my hand. But at least we do have an overpair. Don't see any of my opponents randomly having queens, kings, or aces. I mean, queens is possible. We do have the person who had queens in a big blind in the hand again. And also the one that was leading. So yeah, maybe he has queens. I don't know, but I am feeling pretty good so far. Big blind's going to put in a check. Hijack and cutoff both check too. And I'm going to be putting out a bet here with my overpair. I make it $300 to go. Big blind puts in a call. And keep in mind, this is the same guy. But yeah, he puts in a call and everybody else folds. So I guess we're heads up with him again. And we're going to go to the turn, and it comes the 6 of hearts. Not the worst turn. I mean, yeah, the 6 did pair, but at least there is no 7 of clubs, 4 of clubs. Those would have been some bad cards to see. And my opponent does put in a check. And yeah, I'm not going to be slowing down here. I do grab my chips, and I decide to put out a bet of $720. My opponent puts in a call. We go to the river, and it comes the ace of diamonds. And it looks like a really rough card here, but I mean, it's the ace of diamonds. Both flush draws bricked out. I'm feeling pretty good about that. My opponent I'm playing against has been extremely passive. They don't really put in check raises and things like that. But yeah, after a couple of seconds, I see the bad news. They announced they're going to be all in for $600. I'm like, are you kidding me? How do you go all in here? And I'm looking at it. There's so much invested in the middle. All I have is pocket tens. I'm just hoping they don't have pocket queens again. I don't see them having aces. But yeah, they wouldn't donk jam queens, right? and he didn't even do that last time they had it. So yeah, with both flush draws breaking out, I'm like, yo, I guess I just gotta flick this in. Don't really see myself folding. So yeah, I decided to make the call, and my opponent, oh man, they turn over pocket eights. They turn over pocket eights. They just flopped top set, boat on turn. I mean, I can't believe it. But yeah, my opponent did flat queens that one hand. Maybe I should have expected something like this and pot controlled more. Just so upsetting, especially with seeing the two flush draws break out. I really felt I was good here in game, ladies and gentlemen. I felt I was good. I confidently made a call on the river after the donk jam. But yeah, I guess he just has my number. He's beating me in 3 pots. So annoying. So yeah, sometimes there's that one person at the table that just has your number. And yeah, you can't do anything about it. This session was a really long one. So there's going to be a part 2 coming out in a week. At this point in the session, I am down a whopping $4,200. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you check out this one where I take over all the poker tables at the Bellagio.